I'm Orla.
And I'm Leanne, and together we are How's Your Ma?
On today's podcast, we have Jackie. You're very welcome. And Jackie, we might just let you tell your story from start to finish. I just want to say that I was absolutely blown away by the document that you sent me, by the depth that you went into when you discussed your story and we talked about you coming onto the podcast. And I will let you take it from here.
I spent years of people telling me, don't say you're in the orphanage, don't say anything about your parents separated, don't say anything about you being
So we were
poor
talking
and
to
whatever.
her, we were lining her up. Our mum left and she had a great life with all our aunties and our nanny and all. And her family were like, you can't go on. She wanted to come on and say she had a great life with the people who raised her. Like, do you know what I mean? But it's like...
And then our family was like, no, you can't.
It's
So she wouldn't come on.
Yeah.
So that's what happened.
She was like, I want to do it, but they don't want her to do it. So
And that is an issue.
Yeah.
Like, I threw it across to... Abby didn't mind at all.
how old is Abby?
Abby is 18.
Damn.
Right. Shauna was actually fine as well, to be fair. She was just talking about her dad. Isn't that the nicest thing?
Yeah.
I didn't say to Caelan I was doing the podcast because I know Caelan. What are you doing that? He would just say, he wouldn't tell me not to do it.
Yeah.
But I think he would probably get more in my head and I'd probably go, oh no, maybe I shouldn't.
Right, okay.
You know? But
It'll be a surprise for him.
it will be. But at the end of the day, I think everybody has a story and this is my story.
Exactly.
I'm holding the pen on it. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And I have been writing about it.
Good.
Do you know, the funny thing is, I've been writing about this for years. But I have been writing about it. And then every now and again, I would get the papers and I would rip it up. Or if I put it on the laptop, I would delete everything. Because I would doubt myself. Or, I might talk about bits of my story over the years to somebody. Just in general, chit-chat about something. And they might say something, oh, Jesus, sir. And I'd feel the confidence knocked again.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't. I'd delete everything again. I wouldn't write. But I'm on I would say a little bit of a mission. Because I'm in a good place in my life. That I feel I'm in a good place in my life. That I can write that story and not be ashamed of it. And feel comfortable about it. Now, it's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to talk about. But put me in front of a laptop and I'm no problem. I think I can detach from it. But when I'm talking about it, sometimes and I will cry here.
We'll cry with you.
The tears will probably flow, but just ignore me.
No, we won't ignore your tears are welcome in this space.
Yeah.
I think, the whole premises of the podcast is that people get witnessed for their story.
Yeah.
And there's somebody else who has a different type of mother wound that's going to have a different experience than you. So some people have wounds, some people have hungers, some people have gaps, some people have a fulfilled and healthy attachment with their parents, and then it doesn't impact their life the way your life has been impacted.
Yeah.
But you are you. And all you have is your story. All we have is our lived stories, and it's stories lived and stories told. And as you talked about, like, stories told, people will always add to your story, but it's not your version of it. So this is your opportunity to have your version of your story.
Yeah.
The way you want to tell it.
Absolutely. And I think I'm at that stage in life as well where I'm 57 and I've had so much trauma and so many things, that I'm ready for the next chapter of none of it. No bullshit, no men, no offence.
He's only young.
He's only young. But I'm so looking forward to it because I've I won't say dealt, I'll always have a bit of trauma in my life. I know that.
You're letting yourself be free.
Yes.
You're freeing yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You've heard us talk about on the other podcast, giving yourself permission, because we often ask the world around us for permission. Like you said, I say to people and then they stop the permission to be yourself. But the most healthy thing you can do for yourself is give yourself the permission that you need to live the life that you want to live. And
it took the last few years of doing that. Yeah. It really did. I kind of feel like now I have the tools, and now I say no to people.
Congratulations.
I know. I could never say no to things. I would always go, yes, nod my head, no problem, and go out of my way to do things. And now I'm like...
I bet you feel great.
I do and I don't. There's a little bit of guilt there, but at the same time, I'm like, no, I know this is healthy for me. I know that I can't just keep saying yes to things. And, you know, I've got to start thinking about myself. So, yeah I'm looking forward to
the next chapter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, as she sits with all the pages in front of her, it's the next book.
Oh,
Because you certainly have a book in you, don't you?
I know I have a book in me, but then I doubt myself sometimes as well about that. I'm like, you know, I know everybody has a story. Is mine worth reading?
That's
I don't
yours,
know.
but it's yours.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Now, when I say I'm writing a book, I am no feckin' author. I can't put words together, but I'm doing it for me. Whether I publish it or not, who knows? But it's for me. Do you know what I mean? It's just put it all there. That's those chapters, because it's not just one chapter in my life. There's a lot of chapters there, and I can kind of close it and go, I'm moving on from this.
Yeah. It's very therapeutic, isn't it?
It is very therapeutic, yeah, because
Go.
I see a lot of goodness in the future.
Brilliant.
Whereas I could never see that. I was always going to get upset.
That's okay.
There was always so many things happening. It was like survival all the time.
You're fine.
Yeah, it was a constant survival.
Yeah. And it's really scary to come out of survival mode when that's what you've known for such a long time, because you get attached to the chaos. The same way like you get attached in your relationship or you get attached in your friendships. When the chaos is your relationship, you get attached to that too. And so you want to be in more madness, or you create more madness. And you're like, how did I end up here? But it's what you're attracting because it's what you're comfortable with. And that kind of filters its way through different parts of your life. And it's like, what's the next big thing? What's the next? What's my next fight? Because you don't know how to live without fighting and surviving.
Yeah, because I've had to do it since I was a small child. Yeah. Which is probably where I should start.
So off you go.
Wherever you want to start.
Yeah, no, I'm not even sure where I want to start. I do need my beginning, I guess. Well, I come from a family of, say, 10, my parents and 8 of us. Okay. I would be the eldest girl, second eldest child. I had a brother older than me. And we lived in a place called, well, just outside Ballybottle, Knightstown in Lusk. And it's about 2.5 miles to Ballybottle village. So we lived in a little 2-bedroom bungalow. I guess we were, call a spade, we were extremely poor, very, very poor. My dad worked in the council, in the water department, but I don't think he worked all the time in that, but that's what he did. My mum, she was pregnant all the time. Like, there's 8 of us, so it was steps of stairs. So that's what my memories of my mother was. She was always pregnant. She was always sitting by the range. She was always listening to the music, and that's just how I remember her. I don't have too many memories of my mum, and they kind of come in flashes. Now, I don't know if that's trauma or what, growing up. But there was a lot of domestic abuse in the house. I don't have huge amount of memories of that, but my brother could sit and tell you loads of stories. I have flashes of things. And then I have, like, one, for an example, it's funny, but it's not funny. Sorry.
You're fine.
My dad had 2 old cars at the side of the house, and I remember it was a blue one and an orange one, and neither were working, as far as I remember. And my brother asked my dad what he was going to do with the cars. My dad said he was going to break them up and make one good car out of them. So
cut and shut, isn't that what they call it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, my dad obviously went off to work, and my brother got into his head that got the hammer out and smashed up both the cars. Now, I might have had a hand in that, I don't know, but I won't necessarily admit to him. But he smashed the cars up. And when it's funny when we think about it, myself and my brother, now we laugh about it, but back then it wasn't funny. Because when my dad obviously discovered what my brother and maybe I did, my mum was trying to protect him, and that's the visions I have. I remember her, she had him backed into a corner with her arms out. My dad, coming for her. And my brother screaming and my mother screaming. And so I would have,
Your mum was probably pregnant on a sibling then.
Look, she was always pregnant. She was always pregnant. Yeah, so she would have been. But I do remember that terror. I definitely remember that fear. So it would have been things like that. So there was abuse in the house. Some of my other siblings remember it. And as I say, I think it was true to trauma that I don't really remember a huge amount. But I knew, I felt the energy with my mum and my dad. So I knew there was something there. My mum and dad, well, I'm not going to say they separated. My mum left when I was about 8 or 9. And I remember, I'm going to cry when I say this.
That's okay.
I remember the night she left. Because I don't know if I was meant to be awake or not, but she left out the back window of the house. I remember it being pitch dark behind her. I remember everything she was wearing. I remember her kind of reassuring me somehow. Can't remember her words or anything, but reassured me. And she got out the window and left. Sorry.
You're fine.
So we were left with our dad for months. Left on our own, really. While he went to work at times, myself and my elder brother were the ones looking after the smaller kids. Yeah. And that would mean feeding them, changing them, whatever. Now, the babies would have been the babies. Like they were babies. Because I always remember carrying them on my hips and stuff like that around. And I don't know how any of them survived between myself and my brother, really, when I think back. Like, we laugh about it, but obviously it's not funny.
But you know where your ma went?
Not at the time, I didn't. I did know later on, obviously, everything made sense. But she came back months later. Okay. And I remember coming back to the house and we were in the bedroom. She was trying to get me to open the front door. But I was terrified. I couldn't open the door. It wasn't that I was terrified of her. There was a policeman across the road and he was taking notes. So she obviously came with the policeman. Yeah. I assume she'd been watching the house because my father wasn't there. And the 2 babies weren't there. And I wouldn't open the door, terrified. So she eventually went to the sitting room window and I followed her into the sitting room window. And again, I wasn't listening to her. She was asking me, she was begging me. I remember seeing her kind of, she had a bit of a fear in her face, if you get me, which probably frightened me, but maybe she was trying to get to hurry up before maybe my dad got back. So she took her shoe off and bashed the front window. And as she did that, big lump of glass got on her, cut her shoulder open. She's pumping blood. I'm scared even further. So, but she climbed in the front window because there was no way was I going to open the front door. I was just terrified the whole scenario. And so she took us out of the house. We got into this, I remember it was a big car. Policeman was still there in the corner. And she took us to a refuge. I didn't realise it was a refuge at the time, but later on in life I did. And later on in life I realised she was actually in touch with Women's Aid, which were only established a few years before that, if I remember. Looking at my records, because I read records and stuff later. But so we went to the refuge. And I don't know how long, couldn't tell you how long we were there for. And eventually, obviously, I suppose my mother couldn't cope, really. She took us to an orphanage. And I remember her...
Did she take you from the refuge to the orphanage?
I think so.
Okay.
I would have to go back over some of my records, which I've read some and I haven't read others. They're quite... Difficult. It's not that easy to read, actually. But But I do remember her telling me and reassuring me again that it was a good place, there's going to be loads of kids, and it was my birthday. Now, it wasn't my birthday, couldn't even tell you when my birthday was back then. But yeah, there was loads of kids, all right. But funny enough, when she dropped us off, I'm sure there was communication with the nun and whatever there. I just don't recall that.
Yeah.
But I don't remember being afraid. I wasn't afraid. I do know that.
So can I ask a
Yeah,
question? Were you not afraid, or were you less afraid than when you were at home with your dad on your own? Were you still afraid? Like, are they two different kinds of afraid, or did you just feel that at that time you had less fear?
I probably had less fear. I would have thought, though, at that age, I would have been 8, 9, that I would have been afraid going into an orphanage or whatever. I don't know. It's like I just accepted it.
Okay.
I have no idea why, but I did. And we had a nun that was looking after us, Sister Stella. We call her Stella. And she was amazing.
Jackie smiles as she says Stella's name, and she lights up.
Look at tears as well. But she was, and still is. Yeah. I only visited her there a few months ago. Stella was amazing. Really looked after us. And Bridget, we had a cook in the house. We lived in this big 4-story building. It was an orphanage, yes, and there was kids and whatever. But it was a beautiful building, and the house was lovely. We had a parlour. We used to bring the visitors in when they called in, and we had a playroom up next to the living room and stuff like that. And now this is going to sound very idyllic, because in my mind it was, and it was safe. And so Stella would read us stories every night. We'd all gather around, and sometimes she'd have her, the habit, the headpiece on, and we'd be twirling her hair or whatever. It was just very comfortable. We'd be sitting on our knee and she'd be reading stories and stuff like that, and make us hot milk before we go to bed and all that kind of thing. And she would bring us on great holidays down in Termagh, which was just outside Drogheda. The nuns had chalets there. And we used to go there every summer, Easters, any chance we got, really. And we practically lived on the beach. We were just feral kids, really. But we had amazing memories of that. Like, my childhood memories, good memories, are all of when I was in the orphanage.
Sounds like a nun's mosney or a nun's sunshine
That's
house,
amazing, isn't it? Because I've never heard anybody talk so positive.
I know, and I'm well aware that other stories people have. I'm very well aware of other orphanages and different things. You just got
a good one.
I just got. I think we were just blessed. I don't know, with Stella. But yeah, I had a very good childhood there. As I said, we spent our summers in Termagh, and we even had donkeys, Millie and Molly. I don't even know if they were our donkeys, but they were in the fields beside us. We claimed them anyway.
Yeah, our donkeys then.
Yeah, they were our donkeys. So yeah, I had a very good childhood there. I hated school though. Hated going to school. Always felt different. But then I think it was because in school, you have to remember when I go back a little bit, when I lived in Knightstown with my parents, and saying that we were very poor. We would have went to school hungry. We would have walked to school. Sometimes the busman would let us on. More times than not, we wouldn't. Now, I don't know how we managed to get from where we were to school, because we had a 2.5 mile walk there and back. And I remember the kids sharing lunches with me, because we didn't have lunches going to school. Very rarely, the odd time, would have had a sugar sandwich. Don't know if everybody had sugar
loved them.
Butter loved them. Loved them.
Yeah, no, we didn't get the butter. But we got the sugar or whatever was going. So yeah, sometimes, but we would have been very hungry. And my brother and I used to go up the fields, dragging the kids with us as well when my dad wasn't around, and stealing potatoes or cabbage or whatever was in the fields. Or even sometimes myself and my brother, God, we used to leave the kids in the house as well by themselves, but we would run up to the fields and we'd be getting chased by farmers and everything just to get food to feed the kids.
So are you at this stage, yourself and your brother, maybe 8 and 10,
Yeah.
even like 6, 4, 3-year-olds at home
yeah.
to look after each
Yeah,
other.
even the babies.
Yeah.
I probably left the babies. I don't know. I probably left them to go and get food or whatever.
You were a baby as well,
I was a
though.
bit like I wouldn't have had any cop on
Yeah.
to, you know. I know I wouldn't have. So I don't know how they survived. I really don't. But
They did.
yeah, they did. So, but yeah. So when I was in Drogheda, I'm probably going all over the place this story, but when I was in Drogheda, like we had so much food, we had everything compared to what I had as a child.
So you felt the luxury of safety.
Yes.
And being grounded and being
Very much
loved
so,
and minded
yeah.
and having food and having
Yeah.
a full belly.
Absolutely. But I know where I was talking then about going to school. Because I was rarely in school when I was younger, I missed a lot. So when you think what age they start school back then, you would have been 4,
Yeah.
maybe 5. But most kids back then would have been 4 going to school. So they would have had a good amount of education by the time they got to 8 and 9. I don't think I could read going to Drogheda.
Okay.
So when I started, whatever it was, 3rd class, and I felt stupid because I felt I didn't fit in as well because everybody knew what they were doing in school and I didn't. Now Stella did get me somebody in to help.
Okay.
But I still always felt out of place in school. I always felt I was different, and I used to tell people that Stella was my auntie. I was so ashamed, and yet I had an amazing experience in the orphanage, but I didn't want to admit I was in an orphanage.
Did Stella know that?
No.
Okay.
No. I don't think I ever mentioned that at all.
So you were always just a little girl keeping secrets?
Always. Never said a whole lot. I was always quiet. And I'm well aware of that because I used to remember everybody around me talking and yapping and whatever, and I was always sit in the back and say nothing. They can't shut me up now sometimes. But
Good.
Yeah. But as a kid, no. I said feck all, really. I don't know why. Again, that could have been trauma or whatever. But yeah, I was there up until 6th class, I'd say. But in between all that, my siblings were going to foster people. So I think Derek was the first to go. Derek would have been about 3. So he went to a lovely family in Howth, the McGlues. And we would visit him regularly enough. Like Stella always kept us in touch with everybody. So she was great for that. We'd always meet-ups and stuff. To keep the siblings. Because nobody going to foster out a bunch of kids.
8 kids, yeah.
There's nobody going to do that. Now, the 2 kids were with my father.
So there's 6 of them. The dad
was
kept
only
the
6.
2 young ones.
Yeah.
The mum never got them out of the house.
Yeah. So legally, I suppose back then he could keep them. Now, he was in a new relationship at this stage. So, yeah. So there were 6 of us in the orphanage. So my brother went, and then Anne-Marie went to Navan, to a couple in Navan, whom she idolised the dad but didn't really connect with the mother. The man was very, very strict, and we used to meet her as well, and you kind of got that vibe. She was just that person.
Yeah.
And Sandra went to a family in Munster Boys, and I don't think Sandra ever settled, because every time we met up with her, she complained about them all the time over stupid little things. They were so minor, but she just didn't settle. Frankie, my sister, had special needs, so she went out to Blackrock. There was a school in Blackrock. But Stella always, we were out there all the time, because obviously nuns knowing other nuns.
Yeah.
We were always visiting different homes, and we used to visit a home, and I never remember where it was. Had children with Down syndrome. We loved them. We absolutely loved them. Yeah, we were always visiting them and stuff.
It's like that family systemic setup, isn't it? You're going to visit like your cousins or other relations, and it felt
that's exactly
very
what
much
it was
like that.
yeah. Now, there was one home, which when we go back to talking about homes, I was well aware of other homes that weren't the same as ours.
Okay.
So we visited a home in Drumcondra. I don't know if you know, it was on the right-hand side if you're going into town. We visited a home there anyway. And actually Johnny Logan was there playing the guitar.
Oh, my friend loves Johnny Logan.
No
she
way.
loves it, so mentions him. But my sister-in-law works with the nuns. And I'm like, oh God, does she work with that lot in Drumcondra?
Sorry,
Your brain
but
is on over. I don't know
have
if
to say
she
it
does.
how it was. But anyway, that's where we were going. We were going to see this guy, Johnny Logan. I remember him playing the guitar or whatever. But what I do remember about that place was how dark it was when we went in. Now, we ran amok in the place because when Stella brought us somewhere, she let us, we were feral, she let us do pretty much be kids.
Be kids,
Yeah, 100% she did. But we went into this place and remember running through the bedrooms. Now, we had lovely bedrooms, really nice bedrooms in our place. When I first went to Drogheda, there were like 4 in a room.
Okay.
But after, I think, about 2 years, Stella got all the rooms individually done. So we had our own little room and our own toys and our own bits and pieces or whatever. Lovely, comfortable rooms. And we went into this place and it was just a massive, big dormitory. I remember stopping in my tracks thinking everything was cream, but it was a dark cream. And everything was all metal beds. So I do remember the difference. It was probably the only home I noticed that was... And the kids didn't play with us. They had to behave, if you get me.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
They knew they couldn't just...
Be free, be
kids. They weren't like us from a child's point of view.
Yeah.
And I knew then, and so we just went off and played with ourselves, but we were aware, I could see these kids were kind of sitting and standing, but they weren't really allowed to move, if you get me.
You have that image of Annie, don't you? It's Hard Knock Life,
Yeah.
where as soon as Miss Hannigan comes in,
you say it now, it's like,
behave, and then all of a sudden they're feral
yeah.
and they're running around again. Yeah.
Yeah, only we were the feral ones, but
That's okay.
in a good way.
Yeah.
In a good way. So that was a bit mad, but back to schooling. I hated it with passion. Never took anything in. But yeah, I got through school. Got to the age of 6th class, and all the kids were being fostered out. As I said, they were all gone. I felt I was just too old and nobody wanted me. Now I'm going to cry when I say this bit, but I remember at the weekends people used to call. They were obviously calling to see the kids.
Yeah. For a viewing?
But they weren't for a viewing. They was already they were
prearranged.
it wasn't for a viewing. But in my head, it was like, I'd hear the doorbell and we had a few flights of stairs and I would run down them stairs, open the door, I'd be so nice to these people.
Okay.
Thinking,
Show yourself off and they'll pick me.
that's how my head would have been. I think, that's how I felt, because I used to run down to these people and bring them into the parlour and, get the tea for them and all that kind of stuff, But obviously they weren't there for me. But yeah, so I think I was just too old for anybody to foster out. That's in my head. I don't know if that's the reality.
Did you ever have a conversation with Stella about that?
What I had a conversation with Stella was about, she had a chat with me. I remember she was doing something with the books, tidying up the books, and she was saying, Jackie, maybe you should go live with your gran, talking about my gran a lot. And at this point, I was going to my gran the odd weekend, stuff like that. And I knew what she was getting at. It was nearly like I was going to be there, and I'm saying to her, no, I didn't really speak about my feelings to Stella or say a whole lot. But I remember being really adamant about that I didn't want to live with my grans. I didn't really know them, if you know what I mean. They lived in Swords at the time, and I'd go and stay, but I'd no connection with them, if you got me.
Were they your mother's parents?
Yeah. But they were asked to take me. It wasn't they asked, didn't ask, right? And I knew that. It's funny, I knew it as a child, but then I read my records. I got my records there a year ago, some of them, and she was asked to take. And in my records, it was very contractual, if you know what I mean. It was all about the allowances that she was going to get and stuff like that. There was no... And I felt that too when I was living there. Didn't feel like...
Part of the family.
No, it definitely didn't feel like part of the family.
Can I ask, did your mum have siblings?
Yes.
And so you had cousins then,
Yes.
across there. And did you see much of them when you moved back to your grands, or what was I suppose the centre of the family like?
Most of them were grown
time?
up.
Okay.
There was a few still living in a house. I have an uncle that's the same age as me, and then another one's just a year or two older. So my grandmother, she would have had a good few kids as well herself. And then my other grandmother lived around the corner. And again, she would have had a lot of kids, steps the stairs as well. It was like they both lived in Glassmore and Swords. And but I remember Stella telling me about, or saying to me about living at my grand's, and I was like, no. As far as I was concerned, I'm going into secondary school in Drogheda. I had done my entrance exam, probably failed it, but I did it. And I had friends. I had friends in school, like it just, in particular one friend. Summertime to my grandmother's. Yeah. And I never went back to Drogheda.
Tell us about your friend. What was she like?
Suzanne Clark. She was lovely. She was just so nice. She was one of those, she was a bit like me. She was very quiet. But we used to sit together. Probably because we were so quiet and not really interacting with anybody else. But yeah, I never got to.
They're the people that keep you sane, aren't they?
I'm sure she was wondering, where was I gone? Yeah. But yeah, so we went to my grand's, and I know I probably never settled there. I always felt I was there for, I don't mean to speak ill of the dead, but I just felt I was there to do things, if you get me. Yeah. Like everybody else was getting on with their life, going out with friends and whatever. And I always I'd go to the supermarket, do the ironing or do something. It was always, I never had time for me, I don't think.
And you were 12, were you?
Yeah, 12, 13 or something, yeah. Now, I enjoyed secondary school. I did enjoy that. Didn't enjoy the work. It's just the I think the social aspect of it and stuff like that. And in some ways, it was a bit easier in secondary school because I was living with my gran and not saying I was living in a home. Okay. So I did have an issue, clearly, that living in a home. So from that point of view, it was fine.
And did you still see your ma throughout this?
My mum, yeah, even in Drogheda, actually. My mum called down. And at that stage, my mum had a drink problem.
Okay.
So while it wasn't regular that she called down, she still called down. And sometimes she'd have, be nearly too drunk. But
was your mum an alcoholic?
Yes.
I love that people say they had a drink problem or they took to the
alcoholic.
bed or the nerves. It's all talking, and your ma was an alcoholic.
Yeah, she was an alcoholic.
And would your dad come and visit you?
No, he didn't. He had a new family.
Why did he keep the two small? How come your ma didn't get them out of the house with the six of you?
Because they weren't in the house that night.
They weren't gone out with the dad.
Yeah, they were gone out with the dad, with my dad that time. So
he's probably gone to see. Do you think he was potentially off with somebody else?
He was.
Back then?
I know he was at the time. And funny, I had a feeling the time because I remember seeing this woman as well.
Okay.
And she had 2 kids of her own.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, later on in life, my dad had more kids with her, 3 kids, and then he moved to another family and another 2 kids. So,
lovely.
Yeah, he got around.
God, she's had a gang then.
There's I think there's 13 or something altogether in total or whatever, but I don't know them.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that I do. I don't know them.
Can I ask before you move on then a question about your friend Suzanne Clark?
Oh, do you have to? Because I keep getting upset every time I think.
Did you ever try and look for her?
No, and I remember where she lived.
Why, Jackie?
Don't know. Maybe I think she doesn't remember me. 5 Bolton Square, Drogheda. That's where she lived.
She probably still lives there. Somebody knock in and see Suzanne in.
Oh, stop.
It would be great if somebody did know her, if she got in touch, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Then you could cry at her.
Yeah.
I'm only messing. But it would be great to reconnect, I imagine.
I just even wondered if she even remember me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? She would, yeah. Of course she would.
Leanne, don't be bringing up things you know I'm going to cry about.
But as you talk, and I'll give you a minute to gather yourself.
Yeah, you're right.
And as you talk, I hear about how many wounds and injuries, and you're like, it could be trauma, but they're deep.
They are.
Aren't they?
Very much
It's
so.
like you've talked about loss of your childhood. You've talked about loss of your siblings.
Yeah.
You've talked about loss of your autonomy as a little child. You've just so much loss of a parent, whether they were a good parent or a bad parent, loss of safety structures, loss of school.
Yeah.
With very small sprinkle of happiness that you call Stella.
She was a big sprinkle of happiness in there.
But across your lifetime to get to Stella.
Yes.
Yeah, she was a small, she became in as a small sprinkle, I suppose. And then you talk about, I was just down with her a couple of months ago, so she became a huge part of your life and something that...
Even though I don't see Stella very often. Very rarely would I see Stella. But she's just that, always that one solid, if you know what I mean. Constant. And I know I could pick up the phone.
A lighthouse.
Yeah, and I know that. Yeah. Whereas I couldn't say that about anybody else that has been involved. Like, even if my grandparents were alive, I wouldn't have turned to them for anything, or, do you know what I mean? I wouldn't. My mum, she was an alcoholic. And then when I was living with my gran, she would call up. This makes me sad when I think about it, but she would call up and sit maybe in with my grandfather or my grandmother, and I'd leave. I was so angry with her. I was so mad inside. I wouldn't have anything to do with her. You know, I judged that woman. Now, later on, I'll tell you why I shouldn't have, but I did. And then I did it so often that I remember my grandmother, who never spoke to me about anything really emotional or just, you know, it was just do this, do that. I was just there. Yeah. You know, but she did have a conversation one day in the kitchen. And she said, look, I just want to explain a bit about your mum. Like, we did put her in a home. I couldn't even ask any questions. She said, we did put her in a home when she was in her teens. But she never said why. I think she was trying to get me to understand my mother, which I didn't up until she died. So bring that up later on.
We will.
And I kind of didn't care at the time. I remember thinking it was weird that Granny was telling me this. She didn't say what kind of a home. She didn't say anything about the home. But I never kind of connected with my mother till a bit later on. But I'll get to that. And I say connected probably in some ways, but yeah, so I was in school, secondary school there, and I met Alan, my future husband. We were very young. Jesus Christ, we were very young getting together. Nice guy. We used to hang out a lot. Obviously, I got pregnant when I was 16. And I would have been pregnant not long after I wasn't aware I was pregnant, by the way, but I left my grans and I moved in with my mother. I got a job, JC's and Swords. And I felt very independent. I was doing my own thing. Yes, I was living down with my mother. She was there. It was just her house. And I came and went, did what I liked. And I had some idea in my head, am I pregnant? Am I not? Very naive. Didn't know a whole lot back then.
But the nuns probably had no experience of it, Jackie,
not
to
at
tell
all.
you about
That's I blame Stella on that. I blame Stella on a lot of things when I say this. The bloody nuns. But yeah, no, well, listen, I knew how to get pregnant, obviously. I got pregnant, but yeah, as far as like how long a baby and I denied a lot in my head. I did not want to know. I do know that. And as I said, I was working right up. Now, there was a few whispers in work at the very late stages of my pregnancy. And were you showing? No, I wasn't. Like any 17-year-old, you're skinny. Not like now, but like you're skinny. You don't show anything. But near the end, didn't know it was near the end, but near the end, I was starting to get looser clothes. That was when it was starting to, I think I'm pregnant kind of thing.
Or if I don't think about it, it'll go away.
Exactly. Yeah. And it didn't go away. No, it stayed.
Again with a bang.
Yeah, it did, literally. So I remember then I told my mum. I was on my holidays from work, oddly enough. I had my 2 weeks holidays. And I had them in that 2 weeks, and I went back to work after the 2 weeks.
Wow.
And I thought nobody knew. But yeah, so I told her, called her up to the bedroom one night, and I told her, and she said, "You've got to go to the doctor the next day." So she made me go to the doctor, went, and he sent me straight into, I was living in Skerries at the time, so it was the Lourdes Hospital in Drogheda. And they induced me. They said it was about 2 weeks over.
Oh.
So I hate to think about what could have happened if I kept denying to myself. I don't know what made me tell her, but I told her, my mother. So, yeah, so they induced me, and I had him. And he was mine, if you get me. I don't know if this makes sense to anybody, but it's like, oh my God, just to see him. I can still see his little face. His little baldy head, but it was gorgeous. Horrible birth, but you know, like any birth, it's not going to be nice. The staff were not nice to me.
I can't imagine that they were a young woman.
They were very rude. I was young, so it was like, I think back then it was still judged, really, you know. But oddly enough, I didn't care. I don't know why I didn't care, but I didn't care when I had Caelan, when I took him home. I didn't care what people thought. He was mine.
Because your attachment kicks in.
Oh, completely.
Your biological attachment to the person. So there's a couple of different ones, but your biological attachment to the person kicks in, and your survival instinct that had kept you alive as a small child has then moved to go, I need to look after this person. So you're still in survival mode, but you reframe it so that you're looking after somebody else instead. And it's part of like kind of attachment theory and that kind of biological attachment that we have as women, whether we have children or not. There's a whole big framework around kind of that mothering and a mothering role, and the way our bodies are built to do it. But when somebody's been in survival, they automatically go, this belongs to me. This is something that I owned. We talk about people who've been adopted from tiny babies, and then when they have their first baby, it's like, this is the first person I know who I'm related to.
And that's probably why I felt so strong to him. Like, it was a strong bond. It was like, I didn't want anyone to touch him, anyone to hold him. And I know that sounds ridiculous, like, but that's how I felt. So yeah, then there was, we have to tell Alan, right? Because I hadn't seen Alan. So my mother, this one I was in the hospital, my mother.
So Alan wasn't your boyfriend?
No boyfriend at that stage. He was my boyfriend. He was my only boyfriend, you know, and then obviously we'd split up. We just went our separate ways because I moved down to my mother's. I don't know, we just kind of grew apart. And so, yeah, my mother phoned him, and he was down straight away. Came into the hospital, had a look at him. All the babies are in this room, like literally bumper to bumper cot. They were close together. It was like in the evening, you just shoved them all into a room, and the mammies went and had a rest. The babies were fed for the night. It's great. But anyway, so yeah, Alan came down, and we kind of rekindled things again. And I still lived with my mother for a while, good while actually. And it was fine. She did her thing, I did mine. There was no real... I kind of still judged my mother, if I'm being honest. My mother had a very childlike behaviour. She wasn't maternal in any shape or form. She wouldn't... I used to say she lacked empathy. There was something not right. Yeah. She wasn't a bad person. She was always just... She was funny as hell. I will say that. And I used to try not to laugh at her, even though she was funny. But because I was angry at... couldn't think, why don't you just behave like a normal mom, you know? Why can't you? Again, remind me, I'll tell you why.
Why can't you behave like Stella?
Yeah.
Some resentment
Stella, just be a mother. Yeah. But she was good fun. You know, she did stop drinking. And she went out to work and stuff like that, and we just kind of did our own thing. But anyway.
Did she stop drinking when you came home with Caelan?
Before that. Yeah, okay. She had stopped well before that. I do admire her now for that, because she was quite bad. You know, now I don't know how she stopped or where she got help, or no idea. But yeah, so I moved then into Swords. Because I actually went back to work, but I knew, I remember saying to my boss, I have to give up work because I have Kaylin. And at the time, the owner, JC, Lord of Mercy, was dead now, but he was putting on a creche onto the building beside the supermarket. And he said, bring him to work. Creche is opening next week or whatever. So I did. Brought him to work, and it was brilliant. It meant I could still work with him and whatever. So I did that for a few years anyway. But Alan and I were still dating, and we moved in together. I got a house in Lusk, actually, at the time we moved in together. Before all that, though, he obviously had to tell his mother and his father, and that didn't go down well at all. Understandably, he was only 17. I get it. I do get it, to some degree.
But so are you.
So was I. But, yeah. So, anyway, it took Alan 3 months before he could tell them. Because out of fear, I guess.
So was he kind of living a little double life, going to see you and the baby and then going home?
Going home,
to
yeah.
Matt and Dad?
Yeah.
It's like,
But
I'm
not
just been out with my pals.
I know, but he was only 17.
Yeah, no, I know.
You know, he
but that must have been hard for him as well.
Absolutely. You know, so he would have been scared to tell them.
Yeah.
And he eventually did, obviously, and they wanted to meet with me. So I met them in Scaries at the monument there, got into the back of their car, and they effed me out of it. They literally effed me, how I ruined his life.
Because it's your fault.
Well, obviously, yeah. But back then it was how they thought, wasn't it? I'm not making excuses for them, but they...
Yeah.
What's of its time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The time
It's
was
the girl's
Yeah.
fault. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and they didn't just leave it there. They got us to meet with, I call him Father Bubbles. He was the priest in our school. I think his name was O'Connor, I can't remember, but we all called him Father Bubbles. And he was a real jolly man, everybody loved him, and I thought he was great as well in school, whatever. But we had to go over to his place, and I didn't think he was great then, because when we went in, sat down, I don't know what I was expecting. Myself and Alan had to meet him anyway. And he was very firm. He was very, now this is what you have to do. You need to give that child up for adoption. And I remember going, no. Like,
well done, John.
no. And I don't speak very often, but that was my child.
Yeah.
I was so attached to him, and so there was nobody going to fucking take him off me, you know, in my head. But the panic set in, because I'm like, I don't know, can they? And then he said to us then that, well, if you're not going to give him adopted, maybe you should give him to Tommy and Nuala. That was Alan's parents. And I said no, again, obviously. But I remember coming out of there and in the car on the way home, like Tommy had brought us, Alan's dad brought us there and brought us back. So fucking quiet, excuse my language, but it was quiet in the car. It was very awkward. But I remember in the coming days, it could have been the next day, I don't know, being in Scaries. And because I was living there at the time, I'm being terrified that, sorry,
Okay.
they were going to get him taken off me. So I didn't know, was I too young? Was he going to be taken away? And I remember walking past the solicitors. I don't know if I was going to the post office or what I was doing, but going in and asking, can I speak to somebody? And I was in tears. And I said I needed to speak to them now. And the woman told me to sit and wait, but she knew, she was panicking. But he brought me in, the solicitor brought me in. I was telling him in a panic, in a stress, that I was afraid they were going to take my baby. And him reassuring me that he asked me what age I was. So obviously that was important at the time. So he said nobody was going to take him. and not to be worrying if anything happens to come back down to him. He was so nice. Never saw the man again, but just a fear of somebody's going to take him. And then Stella came to see me and told me that Tommy and Nuala were after being down with her in Drogheda. They wanted to see what I was like as a kid. And she just felt that I should know. Fair play to her, she didn't have to go and tell me, but she did. And that she told them that she felt that I was very capable of looking after Caelan. So she wasn't panning to them whatsoever, do you know what I mean? She was just saying that, well, Jackie's very capable and whatever. So that was reassurance that she had my back. Because it was like a parent should have a child's back. So Stella,
where was your ma and all this? Did she
with
know
fairies.
what was going on? Okay.
I say wait the fairies,
Yeah.
but it will make sense, I think. She did know what was going on, but she wouldn't have had just didn't have the backbone. She might go, that's awful, or something like that, but she wouldn't be, I'm going to go up and have a chat with them.
You won't do that on my young one.
Exactly.
Telling you now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she wouldn't be that, whereas I would be, yous would be, because we have it in us, but my mum didn't. So, Stella had my back, which was brilliant. But Alan never stood up for me, never said anything. But that said, I suppose, again, I'm probably making excuses for him, I don't know. But he was young too. And I suppose maybe in some ways he could have, I'm not saying he was afraid of his parents, they were good parents to their kids, but they just never stood up for me, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you think that Alan loved you?
No.
Okay.
No. I think at some point, he did, or maybe he thought he did. But I don't know. I think we were both going with we have a child. I don't know. I could be wrong. But I don't think I'm wrong, given how I'm going to tell you how things went. So we got together. We eventually moved in together, and I was pregnant on Shauna. And about 2 months and when we got married. But we told his parents. First words out of our mouth was, Mum, you ruined everything. You ruined everything. Yeah, obviously. It's not Alan. Alan wasn't pregnant. So, I ruined everything. And we were excited because we were talking about the wedding and everything, and it was just, everything was, no. So even down to the wedding, I didn't really have say who I would bring to the wedding because they were paying for the wedding.
Oh, okay. So they owned the wedding.
They owned the wedding.
You were just to turn up as the bride.
Literally.
Yeah.
And even though my grandmother had baked a cake and everything or whatever, Nuala went out and bought a cake because it was only a homemade cake that my grandmother did.
Okay.
But it wasn't good enough, obviously. So, so I didn't have the people I wanted at the wedding. Couldn't ask a lot of people because I could only have so many. I hate speaking bad of people, but it's just, it is part of my story, so I have to kind of...
Yeah, people treated you badly.
They did.
They did
to be
treat
fair,
you badly.
They did. But I made excuses for that over years.
Yeah, no, we were talking about this in the car on the way up, and sometimes good people do bad things.
Yeah.
And
but
sometimes
they weren't bad people.
Yeah, sometimes people are bad in many ways, or because things are so different to what it is that you understand them to be.
Yeah.
But just sometimes something bad happens, but it doesn't necessarily always make you a bad person.
No, they were great with Caelan. I will say that. They were great for minding him for, overnight or anything like that. I don't even know why he was being minded overnight. It's not like Alan and I ever really kind of went out per se. Like Alan wouldn't be... Gosh, I'm going to say this now. He never brought me out for a meal or anything like that. It was never... Over the years, there was none of that.
What was that like for you, Jackie?
Do you know, I got used to it. I literally got used to it. I didn't question it. Now, later on, I did, because you're listening to your friends gone off for the weekends away. Yeah. You're listening to your friends working, and I wasn't allowed work. Now, don't get me wrong, Alan never turned around and said, you can't go to work. But there was a lot of obstacles. Who was going to mind the kids? It was just one excuse after the other. And he always said, like, we've no money if we did want to go out or do anything. We'd no money. But yet Alan had money for his fishing trips or, going to the pub with Colin, his friend, stuff like that. It was all that. And I always felt I was just existed there. Do you know, I was second. I was never seen as an equal, ever. And I did know that. But I didn't, if you get me. I just knew it felt not right.
Yeah.
And I kind of got used to it. But when Shauna came along, it kind of... I didn't think about it as much. You know, my friends, yes, that were still all going out and whatever. But I had this little girl that I was looking after. And she was my world then, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And she kind of kept me busy. So I didn't think about the going out or doing anything. Or I didn't care. I had the 2 kids. I was looking after them. And, you know, I was happy from that point of view.
That was your life.
But I was unhappy.
Yeah.
I was so lonely in the marriage. I just didn't exist. It was, Alan used to come home and he'd talk about war. Oh, my God. I could have gone in and done his job. I really could have gone in and done his job with my eyes closed, because that's all he ever spoke about. There was never anything about my day or
how are you?
Oh, no, you joking me. Sure, even the wedding day, I remember saying to him, because you know when you see your husband in a suit and you've never seen him before in a suit, and I remember looking at him going, you look so handsome. But he never said a word back. He never told me that I looked nice or anything like that. It was like, I don't know. I know he was just going through the motions. I feel now he's just going through the motions. Yeah. And he was always in charge of the money. I was never in to have... Now, he never said to me, you can't have money, blah, blah, blah. But it was his money. He earned it. He paid the bills.
He never said it to you, but he never gave you access to it.
No, there was never any access to it.
You didn't realise at the time that was financial abuse?
No. I know now.
Yeah, of
all
course,
the buzzwords are there now, and I know them all now. I say buzzwords, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know them all now, but I just took it normal then. But it used to be if I needed anything in the evening, it was £5 at the time left on the fireplace, and I'd have to get whatever I needed in the shops or whatever. But there was never any... I never had money myself.
Yeah.
It was never like to buy clothes or do anything. But if you did say anything, it was like, we don't have it. But as I said, the fishing trips and no, it's not like he went every weekend or anything like that. But he did go on fishing trips and he did go out. He did, he bought his car and got things for his car and did things. But, if you wanted to bring the kids out or anything, it was a big deal. There was always an excuse as to why we didn't have money.
Do you think that he resented you?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so. I think he was just happy to have me there looking after the kids. I don't think... I could be wrong, but
I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't feel that. I felt numb because I wasn't in a marriage. It got a little bit easier. We moved to Swords. I sold the house in Lusk and we moved to Swords. And it did get a bit easier because, this sounds awful, but Alan had an accident in work. And it meant I could go out to work. We needed a little bit of money. Now, even though he was being paid or whatever, but I got the first bit of freedom. It's only a job in Dunn Stores, but I loved it. I loved it. I say only.
It was your job.
It
It
was my
belonged
job,
to you.
yeah.
You were functioning.
Yeah, so I started to feel a bit, and I started to kind of talk to more people and make more friends, because I was very isolated and lonely down in Lusk. I didn't really mix.
And Lusk was like farmlands back then.
Well, it wasn't. It was a bit civilised. It wasn't too bad, but it was a little bit, yeah.
If you lived where I lived, it's farmland.
There wouldn't have been, I guess. I wasn't driving at the time, so I couldn't just nip around the place with the kids or anything like that. So you had what you had. But anyway, Swords, it did get a little bit easier. But I was just going through the motions, I think. There was nothing between us. Even, I know 2 years before we actually split, it was just pass the chips if you get me. I had no feelings. I was numb at that stage because I never felt appreciated. I never felt I was one with him. There was no getting excited together about it and with the kids or nothing. There was just nothing. Yeah. I was so lonely at that point. And I know my mental health was really deteriorating for sure. So we split in 2002. And I took up a job shortly after just before, apologies, Cafe Bar and Swords. And that's where I met my nightmare. That's the only way I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Shit. Sorry. It's okay. Yeah. So I was working as a hostess at night time. And there was this guy, he was an area manager. Never paid any heed to him. Wasn't on my radar. Didn't find him attractive. That sounds awful, but I think Billie Eilish actually said something a few years ago about don't date ugly men.
She's right.
It caused controversy, but if you look it up. But yeah, she's right when I think about it now. But anyway, he wasn't on my radar. I didn't find him attractive. I knew he was there. Never had any dealings with him. I dealt with the other staff and whatever. But I was working one night, and at the end of the night, sometimes you stay back have a few drinks and whatever. Obviously, I was this night because I was looking for a taxi. And I asked, we were all going home, so I asked, has anybody got a number for a taxi? That's what you did back then. Didn't have your Uber apps or your whatever. So one of the doormen said, yeah, called out a number. I put it in my phone, dialed the number, and a phone rings across the room. And it was
the ugly man.
The ugly man. So everybody laughed. It was funny at the time. Do you know? It was funny. But anyway, one of the doormen ended up dropped me home. Didn't think anything of it. A few days later, get this text. Do you remember the time when everybody sent those funny jokes to each other? And just back then, you did that. It was just
we just stupid. Do that through TikToks and memes.
Yeah.
And Instagram now,
So back then it was, I don't know, you just sent all these things. So these things started coming through my phone. I wasn't paying. I thought it was a bit, okay. Didn't pay much heed. Then there was a lot of funny ones. I was laughing and I'd go ha-ha or whatever. And then the compliments were coming. And of course that sparked my, I don't get compliments. Yeah. You have to remember, I never got them off my husband. So it was very strange that this man was sending these things, not major. And then when I would see him in work, the charm would start, the niceness, the compliments, he was just so fucking nice. He's your perfect gentleman. He'd open the bloody doors for you. He'd put your napkins down when you're having something to eat and stuff like that. He was just everything I never had.
And I think you're never is, like you said about your husband there, but your never is a bigger never. You never had it from your mum. You never had it from your dad. Yeah. You had never had it from quite a lot of people, so it must have felt very different for you.
It did. It did. It was kind of a scary different because I wasn't sure. You know, I was kind of backing off because, when you're not used to something. But he was persistent. And slowly over time, I fell for him for hook, line and sinker because he showed me a version of himself that turned out to be the complete opposite to who he was. Yeah. And I say complete opposite, I mean, you flick a switch. He was my Prince Charming, what I thought at the beginning, to my fucking monster.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. How I would describe him was how I lived with that man was 2 movies. Sleeping with the Enemy, with Julia Roberts, and Oh, the other one, Leonardo DiCaprio. I keep forgetting the bloody thing. He was a constant liar anyway and presented himself in a different way. Walter Mitty, fucking complete Walter Mitty. And that's how I lived. I lived in constant fear. Now, not in the beginning. It was Mr. fucking nice guy.
And he'd obviously had an eye on you and you had 2 kids and you were getting this attention and...
Yeah. And, yeah, the first time he actually attacked me, sorry. I actually didn't know what the hell happened. There was nothing. We were after being on a night out. There was nothing that I could see. Little did I know that he was complete paranoia about everything and everybody that was around me. But I couldn't see that. And Jackie's a bit la-la when it comes to things. It's like, you know, I don't see things.
He's also been blindsided by the love bombing.
Complete love bombing.
What we call it now. That was
again,
that was
another
to
word
you.
that I never knew back then.
And if you don't have the knowledge of it, it's hard to
And
be
I
able
didn't have
to
knowledge of that, even
understand
though
it.
I came from an abusive childhood.
This different types of abuse.
Yeah. This is very different. This was like... And I find it very difficult to explain, Leanne, even when I'm talking to people. I don't think anybody kind of understands that you're dealing with women all the time. You get it. You know what we're talking about. But, yeah, the love bombing. But he was a compulsive liar. But I believed everything he told me. Everything he told me. So, yeah, the beatings were bad enough. Not going to lie, of course
How
they were.
long into the relationship before this started?
About 8 months, I'd say.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he was ever so sorry. And I mean when I say ever so sorry.
And would he be drunk doing it?
He was at sometimes, yeah.
And
was.
Sorry, just
No,
to
go on.
interject, because that's a question that we will get asked in domestic violence.
Not that
no,
it
I know,
means
no, I
any-
know, I
No,
know.
yeah,
But
yeah.
so just to clear it up for everybody who's listening, like being drunk is not an
Not an
excuse.
excuse, but
Being
they
high
probably
is-
say that.
But it
or
doesn't
it's-
matter.
Yeah,
Being
no,
high
I
is
know.
not an excuse.
Yeah.
It's actually being accountable for your behaviour and how
Yeah.
you treat other people. And sometimes the medium of how you do that is by using substances. But it's your behaviour that is hurting the other person who's being hurt.
Yeah, but he used to say the drink, and he used to obviously the sob stories, my God, of his childhood, and I felt sorry for him like a tick. Now again, I blame the nuns because I was brought up. I do blame Stella for all of this. I know I don't, but but I was brought up, to treat people with respect and listen to people and be good and share your this and that's how I just believe in that, if you get me. But I believed everything that man told me. Everything. And everything he told me was the complete opposite to who he was and what he was. And I remember confiding in his mother at times, just to get her to maybe talk to him, get him to stop, do something. I just wanted help. So the wrong person. And if anybody is listening, never go to the family. Because you know what? She was his biggest enabler out of everybody. She was as big and as bad. His father was just as bad. They would protect him through everything. Didn't matter what he did. He was the golden child in that house. And he got away with everything, as far as I could see. The beatings were bad, the choking, everything. I find it difficult. If I'm scooting across things, it's because sometimes it's hard to... go into everything. But I found the manipulation worse. I found the fear. The fear was the worst thing ever, because you didn't know when you were going to say the right thing or not. You didn't know what was ever going to come. I isolated myself from people. I will say he isolated me. But I isolated myself, but it was through him, because... you couldn't talk to people because you got accusations of, is there something between you two? Or, you know what I mean? There was always accusations. It didn't matter whether it was male or female. It didn't matter. So this, it was like a roller coaster. Now in 2007, I am scooting past a lot. I know I am, because sometimes it's hard to go back to some scenarios.
And you don't have to explain all of yourself to everybody.
Yeah, it was a roller coaster of...
How long did that relationship last?
Too fucking long. I think it was until 2007-ish. I kind of just... Look, we were on and off for a lot over the years as well, but it had broke up in 2007. I was pregnant with Abby.
Yeah. Jackie, thanks very much for telling us as much as your story as you have. And we know that you have so much story in you. So you are going to be our first two-parter on our podcast. And
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It's a great thing. And we look forward to hearing about Abby. And we've had lots of feedback, and people are like, why don't you get more? Why don't you ask more? I'd have listened to that for hours. But it's your story and witnessing you. Yeah. So as you move into the next phase and we move into next week, we look forward to hearing part 2 of your story. Thanks very much for coming in today.
Thank you very much for having me. Jackie. I appreciate being able to tell my story.
You little legend.
My name is Leanne.
My name is Orla.
And together we are How's Your Ma?